So tonight, we've got a couple more chapters that we've got to cover. We are looking at chapter 12, and we're going to look at some of our adverse weather conditions. We're going to work on reduced visibility kind of to start things off tonight. There's a lot of different situations where our visibility is reduced. I mean, as part of the IPDE process, one of the most important things that we have is our senses, right? And probably the most important sense that we use as a driver is our sense of sight. The sense of hearing is important. Feel on the vehicle itself is important. But our sense of sight is probably one of the most important senses that we have. And so anything that can kind of reduce that visibility, reduce our ability to see things, can be a potential hazard. Okay, so when our visibility is reduced, what we have to make sure that we do is that we start to try to create as safe a situation as possible. Okay, we do that a couple of ways, right? We slow down, and that should be the answer. Like if the person doing your driving says, well, what's the first thing you need to do in this situation when traffic is heavy or when visibility is reduced or it starts raining? The first thing you need to do is slow down. Okay, slow down. I can't say that enough. Slow down. Remember that the speed limit is the maximum that you are supposed to drive at safe, perfect driving conditions. Okay. Once your visibility is reduced, you have to focus even more. Spend a little bit more time in your search process, aiming high, looking around you, trying to identify potential hazards as early as possible. The other thing that we have to do is to begin to predict how others are going to react, right? That's part of the IPDE process. And then, so we identify, we predict, we decide, and then we execute. So one of the big things that can actually reduce our visibility is our windshield itself. Okay, there's a lot of different reasons why our windshield can kind of become dirty. It might be from the outside. It might be dust or pollen during the spring. On the outside, it might be bugs or bird poop or whatever it might be on the outside of your windshield. Also on the inside of our windshield. Okay, and on the inside of our windshield, you'll notice kind of over time that there tends to get this slight film that kind of builds up. Sometimes it might be from the cleaning materials that were used. Other times the actual plastics in your car give off some off vapors and they can kind of cling to that windshield. And so when the sun hits that windshield, if the sun hits a dirty windshield at the right angle, it can actually cause that windshield to turn white. It can reduce your visibility out of that windshield. Another major thing that kind of reduces our visibility out of our windshield is moisture, right? We can get a fog. Our windshield on the inside can begin to fog up, limiting our ability to see. Okay, if our windshield begins to fog up, and there's a lot of different things that lead to that, temperatures and all of those, but moisture inside of the vehicle at the right temperature is going to create fog on the windshield. And so how do you deal with that? Turn your front windshield wipers on. Okay, and you don't have to run them full blast, but run them and let them clean things off. Put your defroster on. Okay, so on your air controls, turn your front window defroster on, turn your back defroster on, run your air conditioner and heater if that helps, kind of depending on the situation. Okay, and then if you must, you can always open your windows up to kind of allow fresh air in, to kind of balance the humidity inside and outside of the car. Those are all good things to do. You do not want to drive if your windshield is blocked. If you cannot see out of your windshield, you do not want to continue driving in those conditions. Okay. The other thing, obviously, I mean, if it's raining, if it's snowing, you have to watch how much it is blocking your windshield. Rain, not so much. You're going to run your windshield wipers, right? Rain itself is clear, although a heavy rain can kind of limit your visibility, not just on your windshield, but just outside of your car. But a heavy snow might cause snow to kind of pile up on the windshield. And so just kind of keep that in mind. If you have to, stop, clean your windshield off. Okay. When you get to the gas station, if you're on a long trip, clean the bugs off your windshield. Okay, that way it's clean for you as you continue on. So another issue that we run into that kind of coincides with that, if you have the dirty windshield, the sun glaring in. Sun glare can create a lot of issues depending on where it is in the day. It can create this white blinding sensation in your windshield, and it can also just make it kind of hard to see. All right, run with your headlights on. That's one thing that you can do that kind of helps other cars see you. It's kind of hard to show or to explain, but in low light situations or situations where like the glare is so bad, headlights can actually help differentiate what a vehicle is versus what isn't. And so run with your headlights on. A lot of cars today, a lot of new cars have daytime running lights. That was a new thing several years ago on Chevys. I remember when I was growing up, and it drew your attention because every time that you drove by a car that had their headlights on, you're like, oh, they got their headlights on. It's the middle of the day. I wonder if they know, right? And so those headlights help to draw your attention. Dawn and dusk are also very dangerous times to drive, and that's just the lighting conditions. Things kind of begin to blend in a little bit. You don't see things quite as vibrantly as light begins to fade or as light is coming up. Depending on where the sun actually sets, that can create a hazard for you as you're trying to look. You're driving down the road right into the sun. Okay. Another situation that your visibility is reduced is obviously nighttime driving. Nighttime driving and low levels of light can severely limit your ability to see things. Okay. And so how do you kind of abate those concerns of driving at night? Well, headlights, obviously. Okay. You got to have your headlights on when it's dark. As the sun begins to go down in these dawn and dusk situations, your headlights should be on. That is going to help increase your visibility to other drivers. Like when it's pretty light outside, it's not necessarily about casting light for you. It's helping other cars see you. But then as it gets darker, it is about the light that you're able to provide for yourself. High beam headlights in the country and rural settings are a must. Okay, these are going to increase the distance that light is thrown in front of your vehicle. It's going to increase the distance that light is shown on the sides of your vehicle. Okay, and so it gives you a little bit more field of vision. The problem with high beam headlights is that because they're throwing light further, they're a little bit brighter and they're pointing up a little bit to get you a further light. They can actually blind people that are coming to you. So you've got to make sure that you're not using your high beam headlights if a car is kind of within half a mile of you. As soon as you see headlights for another car, you should turn your high beams off. Okay? As soon as you see brake lights of a car in front of you or tail lights from a car in front of you, turn your high beams off. You do not want to blind others on the roadway. Okay? But it's instrumental to having those high beams on in rural settings. It helps you to see animals. It helps you, like I said, to see the sides of the road. It reflects off the street signs a little bit better, so you can see those even better. Okay. If we're in bad weather, so if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's foggy, you don't want to run with your headlights because they do kind of throw light further up. It actually can create this sensation of reflecting light back to you where you can't see as far as if you just run with your headlights on. Okay. When you meet other vehicles, again, you just have to keep in mind that your headlights can blind them. That's probably that's a bad situation, right? As you're driving at somebody, if their lights are blinding you, you can't see. You can't tell where the lines are on the road. You can't tell, where the car is exactly. You kind of get this dazed sensation of, I don't really know where I'm at. I hope I'm on the road, and you try to drive forward. So when you see a car coming at you, what you want to do is you actually want to look down, kind of away from the car and towards the edge of the road. That gives you a focal point, right? So you know that you're still on the road, okay? But you're also not looking directly into their headlights and blinding yourself, okay? One thing that we've got to deal with at night is what we call overriding our headlights, okay? When we override our headlights, that means that we are going faster, okay, to where our stopping distance outruns the length of our headlights, okay? And so if you're driving 55 miles an hour, on low beam headlights, you are overdriving your headlights. Okay, that means that by the time something is illuminated by your headlights, if you tried to stop at that point in time, you would not be able to. Okay, so typically they say about 4 seconds is the distance that you need to give yourself in terms of your stopping distance. So the faster you go, the further that is. Foggy situations. Okay, like I said, don't run your high beams in fog. Fog can be extremely dangerous. Fog can get so heavy you really cannot see other vehicles. If you get into too bad a situation, it's too foggy or too smoky, find yourself a safe place to pull off and try to wait it out. Okay, because you do not want to get in a situation where you run into somebody or something because you couldn't see them. If you must drive, increase your following distance. Okay, give yourself plenty of extra time. You got to pay more attention. Okay, make sure that you're being as safe as possible. All right, rain, another bad situation. Heavy rain can reduce our visibility. Like I said, if you run your headlights, it can cause a reflection of light back to you. Your windshield itself can become, hard to see through, depending on how heavy it's raining. And so you've got to run your windshield wipers. You've got to run your defroster. Make sure that when your windshield wipers are on, if it's raining, that your headlights are on. That's actually the law in North Carolina, that you must run your headlights if your windshield wipers are going. Reduce your speed. Again, slow down. Okay? If you can't see well, if it's raining too heavy, please, please, please find a safe place to pull over. One thing that we've got to kind of deal with is actually our vehicles in rainy situations. The road itself is slippier, right? You can't see as well. The road itself, you don't have as much traction. And so you slow down and you give yourself more space. Those are the two things you can always do to help yourself navigate difficult situations. All right, snow. Now, this isn't necessarily something that we deal with a whole lot down here in North Carolina. We get a ½ inch of snow and we shut down for a week, it seems like sometimes. But it is safe. It is okay to drive through snow. Right? When you drive through snow, you've got to be careful, steer carefully. You make gradual motions. Right? What you have to worry about is when that snow begins to melt and then it freezes on the road. So depending on what the temperature is, depending on the preparations that were made for the snowstorm by the state, by the road crews, you just have to be careful. As it snows, though, okay, it's going to reduce your vision. It's going to cover your roadway markings. You're not necessarily going to be able to see the lanes on the road. Depending on how difficult or how heavy it's snowing, these are all things that can happen, right? Snow can build up on your windshield. It can build up on your rear windshield. Just make sure that you are keeping your car clean, that you're keeping yourself visible, and that you're able to see and understand and kind of keep that spatial awareness about where you are. Okay, you do not want to get stranded in a blizzard. Okay, you do not want to get stranded in a blizzard. One, always make sure that your car has enough gas. Okay, if you were to get on the road, you've only got, people like to run their gas gauges down to where it tells them that they've got 5 miles to E. What if you were to get into a traffic situation and you've got 5 miles to E and you're nowhere near? Just a couple years ago, there was a bad wreck on Highway 17. To get from Hampstead to Scotts Hill, which usually takes about 10 minutes, it took a couple of hours. Okay? You don't want to be stuck in that type of situation. You don't want to be stuck in that type of traffic. All right? So, especially in a snow situation where temperatures can drop drastically, if you run out of gas, if your car shuts off, you're going to be stuck in freezing temperatures. So make sure that you are driving in safe conditions.